Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful, influential, and honestly, surprisingly overlooked empires in Indian history. We're talking about a group that rose from being regional warriors to challenging the mighty Mughals, controlling huge parts of the subcontinent, and really holding the keys to India right before the British arrived. But first, let me ask you a quick question. When you think of the last great pan-Indian empire before the British took over, who comes to mind? Most people would probably say the Mughals, right? But is that really the whole picture? Well, the answer is the Marathas. At their absolute peak, their influence stretched from one end of the subcontinent to the other. And here's the key thing to remember. It was from them, not a weak and declining Mughal Empire, that the British truly wrestled for control of India. So, how in the world did this happen? Well, it wasn't just some political or military takeover. It actually started, like so many great movements do, with a cultural spark. So, first off, who were the Marathas? Well, picture this. These are people from the rugged Deccan plateau in what is now the state of Maharashtra. What brought them together was their language, Marathi, and this incredibly powerful sense of a shared identity that was about to be forged into an empire. You see, the foundation for this empire wasn't actually built on battle plans. It was built on poetry and faith. Long before any swords were drawn, this big cultural wave called the Bhakti Movement swept through the region. You had saints like Tukaram and Ramdas who spoke to people not in complex, scholarly Sanskrit, but in simple, everyday Marathi. Their message was all about equality and devotion, and it gave ordinary people this profound sense of unity and self-respect. That was the cultural bedrock for everything that came next. And that cultural unity, it found its champion in one man, a visionary leader who would take that shared identity and turn it into a real, physical kingdom. His name was Shivaji. I mean, his life was just a whirlwind of strategic genius. He started capturing forts when he was just a teenager. By his late 20s, he was outsmarting and defeating legendary generals. His escape from Mughal captivity, that's the stuff of legend. And then finally, in 1674, he has his coronation as Chhatrapati, the sovereign king, which basically made it official. A new power had been born in India. But what was he even fighting for? His whole ideal boiled down to one powerful concept, Swarajya, which means self-rule. See, growing up, he saw how the constant wars between these big, powerful sultans just wrecked the lives of ordinary people. Swarajya was his answer to that. An independent kingdom ruled by its own people that was all about justice and protection. And this story just perfectly shows his methods. When this huge, powerful general, Afzal Khan, came to crush him, Shivaji didn't try to meet him on some open battlefield. Nope, he arranged a one-on-one meeting, but he came prepared. He suspected a trap, so he wore hidden armor and concealed this crazy weapon called a wagnak, a tiger's claw. And sure enough, when Khan tried to attack him, Shivaji was ready, and he turned a potential assassination into this massive victory that everyone heard about. And then, you've got the great escape from Agra. I mean, this is straight out of a movie. He's under house arrest in the heart of the Mughal Empire by the Emperor Aurangzeb himself. Escape seems totally impossible. So what does he do? He starts this daily routine of sending out huge baskets of sweets as gifts. The guards get used to it, they get lazy. Then one day, Shivaji and his son are just gone because they were in the baskets, carried right out the front door to freedom. Absolutely brilliant. But look, the Maratha story didn't end with Shivaji. Not even close. He lit the spark, but it was his successors who turned it into this massive imperial fire. The kingdom he built was about to go big and become a true pan-Indian empire. After Shivaji, something really interesting happened with the power structure. It started to decentralize. So while the Chhatrapati, the king, was still the symbolic head, the real day-to-day authority shifted to the Peshwa, who was the prime minister. And over time, this grew into a confederacy, basically a network of powerful Maratha chiefs, each ruling their own area but all united for a common cause. And the leaders who stepped up in this new era were just incredible. You had Tarabai, a queen who fiercely defended the kingdom and started pushing its borders north. You had the Peshwa Bajirao I, a legendary general who supposedly never lost a single battle and took the Maratha flag deep into Mughal territory. And later on, you had guys like Madhavra I and Mahaji Shinde, who would rebuild, modernize, and project Maratha power all the way to Delhi, the Mughal capital itself. Okay, so they're expanding like crazy, but how did they actually run this huge territory? Their success wasn't just about winning battles. It was built on a really sophisticated and efficient system of government. Just look at this. This is the Ashtapradhan Mandal, Shivaji's Council of 8 Ministers. It's basically a blueprint for a modern cabinet. You've got a prime minister, a finance minister, a commander-in-chief, even a foreign minister, and a head of intelligence. This was not some simple feudal kingdom. This was a well-oiled machine with clear jobs for everyone. And their tax system, super smart. They mainly used 2 taxes called Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. Now, what this meant, essentially, is that neighboring kingdoms would pay the Marathas a cut of their revenue. And in return, the Marathas promised to protect them from anybody else who might invade, and they let them govern themselves. It was a genius way to make money and project power without having to micromanage every single village. And this quote right here from Shivaji's own finance minister, it just says it all. Forts are the core of the state. Militarily, everything was built around this massive network of forts. They were the absolute backbone of Maratha power. They provided defense, they controlled trade routes, and they allowed their smaller, quicker armies to outlast and outmaneuver huge invading forces. Simple as that. No forts, no empire. So when you put it all together, their power really stood on 4 main pillars. They had an efficient administration that paid its official salaries instead of just giving them land, which cut down on corruption. They had a strong navy, which was really rare for Indian empires. They could challenge the Europeans on the coast. They had a system of fair, local justice, and they were deeply committed to a cultural revival, promoting their own language, arts, and traditions. But you know how these stories go. As the Marathas became the top power in India, they ran headfirst into a new, rising global power, the British East India Company. And this was the final act. The whole clash unfolded over 3 huge wars that spanned more than 40 years. The first war was pretty much a stalemate. The Marathas even won some key battles. But in the second and third wars, a combination of internal fighting among the Maratha chiefs and the superior organization of the British led to the final defeat and the end of the Maratha Empire in 1818. And listen, if you take away just one thing from all of this, let it be this. By the time the British were really solidifying their control, the Mughal Empire was basically a shadow of its former self. The real dominant power they had to beat to rule India was the Maratha Confederacy. But their legacy endured. That Maratha ideal of Swarajya, of self-rule, it didn't just die in 1818. It became this powerful memory, an inspiration that planted some of the very first ideological seeds for India's struggle for independence more than a century later. Which leaves us with a really fascinating final question to chew on. The very thing that made the Marathas so successful, this decentralized confederacy that allowed them to expand and control a huge empire, could that also have been their fatal flaw? Was that lack of a single central authority the very weakness the British were able to exploit to bring them down? It's definitely something to think about.